Welcome to the AP Podcast. Today we have Stephen Campolo with us today. How's it going, Stephen?
What's up, Austin? How you doing, man?
Good. I'm super excited to get Stephen on the podcast today because I know a lot of you guys listening to my stuff or seeing my content see that I like to go into the body type kind of nutrition style of things to kind of fit, certain body types. And I want to get his approach on it today. I want to, introduce him and have him tell his backstory and give some value because I think that what he's about to tell you guys is going to be super, super important based on where you're starting and giving you some practical insight of how to go about your fitness goals. So first off, Stephen, introduce yourself. What are you about, man? Where are you from?
Yeah, what's up, guys? So my name is Stephen Campolo. I am from Naples, Florida. Originally, I'm from New York, but I've been in Florida for about 15 years now. Formerly very overweight. I'm 30 years old now, but my childhood and early adult life, I was considered obese by my doctor. So, I struggling with my weight has been something that kind of led me on this journey to a, better lifestyle and healthier lifestyle and helping other people in the process. So here I am many years later, but it's been a fun journey. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Mm-hmm. Cool, man. Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about your overweight and how did that first step happen to get inspired to lose the weight for one, and then also transform and pursue this fitness career that you're doing now. You said that you told me earlier, it's been a year now since you switched to all online. You were training probably before that, I'm assuming. Yeah. But some big things have happened over the last 5 years, I'm guessing. And kind of run us through how everything kind of ended up as well.
Yeah, man. So, try to keep it short and sweet. But, I grew up pretty overweight. I just loved food. I grew up in an Italian house. So food is like the staple of everything we do, right? Like Sunday dinners with the family, and food is just something for pleasure and to be enjoyed. But like everything, if you take it to the extreme, it could be a bad thing. So, pre-puberty days, I just loved to eat. Wasn't really thinking about girls at the moment. So food was kind of my comfort. But, as we get older, we want to attract the opposite sex. We go through puberty, hormones start to shift. And I knew I had to do something about my weight because all my buddies were, getting dates. And here I was not having any girls look at me. So that kind of led me on my journey to, make a change, start working out, or what I actually started to do was just started to run. So I would run, every single night. I would eat chicken and broccoli because I thought that's what you had to do to get in shape. And I lost a bunch of weight, kind of got this like skinny fat physique going on. So that's what led me to start working out, because I went from a, really fat kid to now like a skinny fat kid. So I was still super like ashamed to take my shirt off. Mm-hmm. So, started going to the gym, and that really like led me on a journey from buying the magazines to trying to figure out what diet is best, how much protein I need, what kind of workouts I should be doing. Obviously, everyone at the gym wants to give you advice on what you should be doing when they have no idea what they're doing themselves. So honestly, it's just been a 15-year process of trial and error. And I feel like these past few years, I've learned more about nutrition and hormonal responses and metabolic types and weight training. I've learned more in these past 2 years than I have, over the past 15 years of me kind of being involved in health and fitness. So, graduated college in 2010 with my business degree, went into the corporate world, decided I hated it. And, again, I've always loved health and fitness. So I took a personal training job at a private country club where I live, started training people, and I just kind of wanted to grow it and scale it, because when you're training people in person all the time, you just can't scale it. So I wanted to make more money with it, and it seemed like everyone was going online. I didn't think I could do it because the industry was so saturated with online trainers, and every other person on Instagram is an online trainer. So I kind of talked myself out of it for a while. But one day I just woke up and said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go for it. No one has my personality. No one has my knowledge base. No one has what I have. So I'm going to give it a shot. So a year ago this week, I decided to take my business online, and it's been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. I wish I would have started when I was like 20 years old in college, but better late than never. Right. So here we are today.
Nice. No, yeah, that's a great backstory. Honestly, I want to like take out a couple things from that. First off, I think that a lot of people like why you've grown so much and so relatable to a lot of people because that chicken and broccoli and like the bro foods to lose a bunch of weight, to start doing cardio. A lot of people start to do that stuff, and whether they're doing binge cycles like yo-yo stuff with that, or they actually lose it all, but they look skinny fat, and you're still the main thing at the end of the day wasn't like necessarily all the weight loss, but it was the confidence that came with the weight loss, right? And the muscle and some of that. And so transitioning into weight training, you sounds like you did. And a lot of people, I want to like just say it because it's so important to not just think that through media or like certain stuff that cardio is the way. Cardio, eat less, chicken broccoli. It's just not how it is. And we're going to dive into that a little more of like your approach to that kind of stuff and how you tell people to change their viewpoint. Because when I'm dealing with clients, the number one thing that me and you are probably transforming isn't necessarily, we're giving them the tools, obviously, but it's usually starting with the mindset of how the process really takes place. And a second thing I kind of want to hit on, I think that was super cool, because I've been in the online space for a little longer, probably not has grown as much as you, because I started mine back in college, and I pretty much just started making content and helping people and just trying to do like a side hustle until one day it was either like I was usually a mechanical engineer. I originally was an engineering student, so I was like constantly just going crazy with it, math, science, blah, blah, blah. But I couldn't keep up with the referral system that I was getting and then all the schoolwork. So I had to make a decision, and I chose to chase the passion because I had the same mindset that you did prior. I was like, I don't think I could do it. Like, how could I make any sort of money close to an engineer doing this online coaching? Like what? Yeah. And then, fast forward, best decision of my life. I wish I would have done it sooner because you can make as much, you can make more, way more, following your passion and doing it correctly and growing and being happy with the career. So I guess just a couple things, like I said, the approach to clients, and then also people are trying to pursue whatever they're thinking, they're doubting themselves. At the end of the day, if you're not going to give yourself an opportunity, you're not going to succeed in the first place. You might as well just not try. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, so true.
But yeah, so I guess transitioning, metabolic, you said, type and different body types is kind of what I want to go into with you, and kind of run me through, and our listeners and stuff like that, how many types, how many classifications do you go into for your body types?
Yeah, so let me backtrack a little bit because I like to explain to people how I even got into why body types matter, why your metabolism matters, right? So I didn't mention before, but when I was 17 years old, after I had been training for a little while, I actually got linked up with a professional bodybuilder. And at this point, I was just obsessed with, bodybuilding and the whole lifestyle. I was working part-time at Gold's Gym in high school. I just loved it, right?
Yeah.
So, this pro bodybuilder was, he was training me. He was putting me on this bodybuilding diet, eat 6 meals a day. And I didn't really know anything else. I didn't know any better, right? So I was just kind of listening to what he said. And one thing I was finding is that I just didn't do well on higher carb diets. I just wasn't really dropping weight. And other people, and I had friends that were competing as well, and they would be eating 500 grams of carbs a day, and they would be getting shredded. And here I was having 200 grams of carbs a day. And I was still holding onto fat. I wasn't getting that lean, ripped look that they were getting. So I'm all right, something either hormonally or metabolically, something is wrong. So this kind of led me on that journey to figure out, okay, everyone shouldn't be following the same exact diet. Hormonally, we're all different. And a lot of people and a lot of fitness coaches, you want to argue with me that, well, it's all about calories in, calories out. It's all about thermodynamics. That's all that matters. It's no, that's such a small piece of the equation when it comes to losing weight and, gaining muscle. Is it an important piece? Yeah, of course. We should definitely watch our calories. We should definitely monitor our macronutrients and micronutrients, but it's a small piece. You have to know hormonally how your body responds. For instance, if you're more insulin resistant, then typically, you feel more bloated after having a higher carb meal. You feel sluggish. You feel lethargic. And a lot of people already know this. Like, as soon as I start telling them this and explaining it to them, like, yeah, like that's me. Like, I get it, because I can't lose weight, on this type of diet, but, my friends could lose weight eating almost anything. So people have to realize that they're not built the same way as their friends are, and you can't do what other people do to get results. Just because, Johnny over there got ripped by following a, if it fits your macro style diet, doesn't mean you should be following that style diet, right? So I think people just have to be more open to the fact that, we are all different. We all have different hormonal responses to certain foods and certain macronutrients. And this has really been the foundation of, my theory and my programs as well. So there are 3 body types: endomorph, ectomorph, and mesomorph, right? So I'm an endomorph. Endomorph is typically slow metabolism. We hold on to fat a lot easier than the other 2 body types. We don't do great on higher carb diets. We're more insulin resistant. So, those body types usually feel like they're doomed to be fat forever, but that's not the case. Once you identify your body type, it's actually quite easy to make adjustments and know when to eat certain foods and at what times, and the style of training to really work with your body type. So that's the endomorph. The ectomorph is typically considered the hard gainer, the lanky guy that could eat 5,000 calories a day and not put on weight. Their metabolisms are, very fast. They're very insulin sensitive, so they could have a ton of carbs without getting fat. So those body types are, I think they're lucky. They think they're cursed because they can't put on muscle as easier as, an endomorph or a mesomorph. Now, a mesomorph is kind of like your genetically superior body type, muscular, pretty fast metabolism. They could kind of eat whatever they want as well and stay lean, and they just look more or less like a bodybuilder all the time. They don't have to try as hard in the gym. They're the type that kind of stares at weights and they put on muscle. So
yeah,
those are the ones that we all hate because they make you look easy. But if you've been in the fitness game for a while, it's anything but easy. So yeah, those are the three body and metabolic types.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome that you're bringing all this up and kind of giving descriptions and stuff like that, because people will start relating. I like that you obviously do that, because it is usually that aha moment, and that's where, like we talked about earlier before we got on here, about people that are against it and saying it is just purely thermodynamics, which I understand that there's more than the thermodynamics, because I've actually taken thermodynamics. There's more to it, that it doesn't just mean like energy in, energy out. There's other things, other variables that are going into play. But if those hormonal variables are controlled, then yeah, obviously it's just like a car, but it's not like that.
Right.
But yeah, I like the 3 body types. I go into a lot of that with my viewers. I actually have the same beliefs as you. I kind of mix both of them together because, how I like structure programming stuff. Yeah. Endomorph, slower metabolism. I go a little more on their lean body mass and try to really figure out their calorie intake, and then, figure out ratios for their protein, carbs, and fats based on, when they're training, their insulin sensitivity. Like there's a spectrum. Like there's 3 main, categories that we see usually. And do you usually go through like a questionnaire process? Do you make that decision by having them go through like a week of diet, like a week of what they already eat, you go by how they look, like their waist to shoulder ratio, or just different variables like that? How do you determine? Usually with people, you can do, like you said, the digestion stuff like that. But what are like all the variables of how you would figure that out?
Yeah. So for me, and I'm not sure if it's the same for you, but if you've been in this for any amount of time, I feel like it's more intuitive than anything. I mean, I could talk to someone for 5 minutes, actually like 1 minute, and just know right away, why they haven't gotten the results they want. I usually want a brief history of, how they've been eating, what kind of training they've been doing. And I mean, really, once you ask them a few basic questions, like you really know exactly what the issue is, or, what changes need to be made right off the bat for them to start getting results like that same day. So, yeah, it really doesn't take long to look at someone and say, okay, like you were doing this, you need to be doing this to get to where you want to be. So yeah, it's, for me, it's more intuitive, but I mean, again, if you've been in the coaching space for a while, you get to know your, different clients, you get to know similar patterns between body types and between people, to where it's not like every single person is, something you've never seen or dealt with this before, because a lot of us struggle with the same exact things. Like most people struggle with the same eating issues, with the same training issues. So once we identify those and put them on the right course and give them a plan of action, like things typically start to take care of themselves, and change happens pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And it kind of goes back to the route that me and you were trying to give people. Usually it's just a mental shift, because they're already trying and maybe they'll get discouraged. Maybe it wasn't, trying the right thing for them. And so I would have to say that a lot of my coaching, just like you just said, is really intuitive, because there's curveball all the time. You know what I mean? And everybody's body is different. We have general structures, but I'd say that somebody might have a digestive problem. Somebody might have an insulin resistance problem. Somebody might have like a heart gainer problem. Like obviously we're going through all this stuff, but I'd say that it's very intuitive. And to really, I guess, how would you have them go to somebody like you and to go through? Do you go through like a process to figure that out, or do you like, how do I explain this? With their training and their nutrition, stuff like that, they're already doing something. They come to you, and then you tell them, like, what foods would you recommend an endomorph rather than a ectomorph? Let's do that.
Yeah. So typically when someone comes to me, again, I want to know exactly what they've been eating, right? Because I mean, so like you brought up that digestion, like digestion is such a huge part of, getting in shape, getting healthy. But most people just, again, we're so like stuck on the thought of just tracking calories and tracking macros that we kind of negate all the other important pieces that make us as humans like feel good. Like we forget about fiber intake. We kind of forget about like the micronutrients that our bodies need to function and feel good. We're so concerned about, well, as long as I hit my macros. But what if those macros aren't made up of like necessarily healthy foods, What if you're eating mostly processed foods, but you're hitting your macros? So that's all that matters, right? So once we identify what that person has been doing, then I can make adjustments and say, okay, you know what? You haven't really been having that much fiber. That's why you probably feel bloated. Or that's why you haven't been, going to the bathroom as often as you should be to get rid of all that excess waste that you have built up in your colon. So there are things like that as well that I feel like a lot of online trainers don't really observe, because it's not easy, right? Like it's not just giving someone a calorie program and a training program and saying, all right, here you go. You really have to know, kind of like what they've been doing up until that point and why they've been feeling like crap or why they haven't been getting the results. So like for an endomorph, typically you want to have like higher carbs after your workout. You don't really want to have, now I'm a big advocate of intermittent fasting. Not all of my clients intermittent fast, but most of them do, because I believe in it. And hormonally, I think it's an amazing tool for fat loss, especially for endomorphs. For the reason being, like when we first wake up in the morning, cortisol is elevated, right? So for an endomorph with slower metabolism, if you wake up and have like a big carb-rich meal, right away you're pretty much setting your body up for fat storage mode before you even start the day. Mm-hmm. So again, that's just one thing. And then, you want to make sure post-workout, you want to have a higher carb meal to help replenish muscle glycogen. There are strategic times when you do want to increase your insulin. Again, post-workout, where your body's going to be able to absorb all of those nutrients, all of those carbs very, very efficiently, and limiting storage to your fat cells. So now an ectomorph, for example, you can get away with, having a bigger breakfast in the morning and eating more frequently, maybe eating every 2 to 3 hours, to stimulate, just growth and recovery. Because ectomorphs go like, they just cycle through carbs so efficiently. They just go through calories so efficiently. So, however, like with an ectomorph, you want to keep the training volume a little lower because their metabolism is already so high. If you put them on a high volume training program, then they're going to end up burning more muscle, right? So even though maybe they're eating more food, they might be kind of counteracting each other with more training. So actually for ectomorphs, you want to keep training to a bare minimum, enough to stimulate protein synthesis, enough to stimulate muscle growth, but not overdoing it and overtraining, because again, ectomorphs can burn muscle pretty quickly. So it sounds a little more complex. It's a little easier than that, but again, these are kind of just basic principles that, if people follow, they'll start getting results almost immediately. So.
No, I completely agree. And what Stephen's talking about is like nutrient timing based on that body type that he's talking about. And I want to preface, I like that you actually take into account their training volume based on their body type too, not just their nutrition, because obviously like carbs are going to be, call it muscle sparing, right? Or whatever, because we're using glycogen rather than using amino acids or protein or muscles for energy or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, like to stimulate muscle growth doesn't take an ectomorph to like just destroy himself for 2 hours. It's like not how it works, right? There's a good process, a damage response, and then recovery, and then building the next time, whatever. But yeah, I'd say that what I like to do is like take those body types and then have certain like percentages or majority of the carbohydrates, nutrient timing parts of the day, meaning like an endomorph, like you're saying, might be in the realm of structuring 60 to almost 80% of the carbohydrates around their training or during their training. I'm a big advocate of intra-workout. I don't know if you are, but I'm like a huge intra-workout carbohydrate guy, especially for endos. But then, limiting it to other parts of the day because we're not needing the energy as much through the carbohydrates and stuff like that.
Yeah. So like it's really simple once you truly just understand, like, and really think on just very practical and logical terms. Like, okay, when does your car need fuel? When you're going to drive it. When does your car not need fuel? When it's sitting in the driveway. And this is what I try to explain to people. It's like, listen, on your training days, have your carbohydrates around your training times. Again, if you're an endomorph, try to have those carbs post-workout, so your body's going to utilize those carbs for, again, stimulating protein synthesis, for recovery, for replenishing muscle glycogen. But on the days where you're not training or just doing like light cardio, or maybe, abs and light cardio, bring your carbohydrates down and just increase your healthy fats. It's honestly as simple as that. So once you have your calories that you should be consuming, once you have the macros that you should be, aiming for, all you have to do is just say, okay, I'm going to have carbs after my workout. And then on my rest day, I'm just not going to have complex carbs. I'm going to enjoy more healthier fats, avocados, mixed nuts, oils, whatever that is. Right. So again, it's very practical information. Like when you really look at it, it's not complex at all. The human body is very complex. And I think a lot of people try to overcomplicate things because, the less educated the consumer is or the client is, the easier it is for them to say, okay, well, I guess I need you to, do this for me because I have no idea. So, but people are very smart, and once you explain it to them in a practical way, most people get it. It's not complex. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's usually just, a lot of times like media stuff or like articles will use big words and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's not as complicated as we really think if we just think about it logically, like you said. Yeah. But you did bring up, increasing healthy fats or like dropping carbs on like off days, stuff like that. I want to ask you, that's a thing that I don't know if a lot of coaches take into account. And I want to ask you if you do about the types of fats based on the body types itself. Because what I really look for too is, when you say digestion, but I really look for inflammation as well, especially with an endomorph.
Yeah.
So kind of go into how you strategize that stuff and how you structure with certain fats and what you kind of use.
Yeah. So I try to keep fats pretty simple. Again, like I look at the fats I enjoy eating, and most people are, the same as me. So like I eat, 2 avocados a day. I'm big on almonds. I love almonds. Olive oil. Eggs, I eat, it's like some days I'll eat 10 eggs just because it's such a good source of fatty acids. So one thing you have to try to communicate to people, when a lot of people hear the word fat and having a lot of fats, they think they're going to get fat, but unfortunately it's just a misconception, right? So but going back to like inflammation, so people who are on higher carbohydrate diets and who eat more processed foods typically have more inflammation. So that's why mitigating that inflammation with a higher fat diet and doing a more carb cycling type style diet might be beneficial if you do suffer with inflammation. Now, not everyone suffers with that. Some guys don't. I do. So that's why I have to be a lot smarter with my supplementation, taking fish oil.
That's what I was going to ask you is the omega-3s and the fish oil or whatever kind of how you implement a higher omega-3 for that anti-inflammatory effect.
Yeah. So I'll do 2 servings of fish oil every day. So I take my fish oil in the morning and at night, just to help with recovery and just to help with inflammation. Because again, every time we go to the gym, we're inflaming our bodies, right? I mean, we're ripping apart muscle, we're creating micro tears in the muscle. So the way we grow muscle and build muscle is by our bodies repairing. And in that process, the body causes inflammation because it senses that there's an injury in the muscle, and we hold water and we become inflamed. So knowing how to supplement properly and have a proper diet is critical. And that's why a lot of people that just are just more concerned about hitting their macros, but not really understanding what certain foods are doing to your body in terms of inflammation, can be an issue. Like, for example, when most people go on a more ketogenic based style diet, their inflammation typically goes down because of the reduction in carbohydrate intake. And higher fat diets produce more lubrication for the joints, more lubrication for the tendons. So again, that's why when I talk to clients, I want to know exactly how they're feeling, not just what their goals are, but I want to know how their body actually feels, because there are ways to help them feel better. There are ways to mitigate pain and and feeling like crap. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you have a 8-pack, right? If you feel like crap, then what's the point? You want to look good, you want to look healthy, you want to look fit, but you want to feel good. This is a lifestyle. It's not just about getting ready for a bodybuilding show and just looking great for a day. This is something that you want to live out. You want to stay healthy, you want to stay lean, but feeling good, I think, is something that's often left out when it comes to, proper diet and proper supplementation.
Yeah, no, I agree that not a lot of people think about those individual roles with the supplementation a lot too, as well as the nutrition. But I do want to go into, because we've been going a little harder on the endo, flipping switches to the ectomorph, more of the hard gainers. Usually it's going to be people that either start out skinny fat, or I've actually seen people just through maybe high cortisol environments, like high stress or whatever, they'll actually put on body fat, but their limbs are still skinny. So they got a beard gut, kind of like a belly, but they're tiny. And so kind of taking it in a point of maybe getting in the calories that they need, sticking to I like to stick to a higher carbohydrate, simpler carbohydrate diet to keep the hunger hormone stimulating and the digestion just rolling over and over again, because there's not a lot of fat to slow it down. But tell us, do you like to implement any sort of powders, or do you like to stick to majority just foods for the body type, or does it depend?
Yeah, so I always think that whole foods are going to be optimal for just general health. I think anything synthetic is always going to be secondhand. So, for instance, if you're able to make food at home and bring it with you, or if you're able to make your food at home, if you work from home or something, you're always going to be better off eating regular food. With that being said, I still do, an ISO protein when I'm on the go, or if I don't have, access to food, I might grab a Quest bar or 2. Again, is it optimal? No, not really. But, if you have it readily available and it's your only option, then sometimes you just gotta
Well, yeah. And why do you?
You gotta do what you
I
gotta
want
do.
to ask you a little deeper. Like, what is your like opinion or theory on like why it's not as optimal as maybe like eating a chicken breast or turkey or all that stuff? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, so foods like that. So let's just say protein bars, for example. There's just a lot of preservatives. There's a lot of processed crap that, like artificial sweeteners. I mean, today most protein bars taste like a candy bar, and they're actually like quite addicting. Like I love Quest bars. I mean, I'll eat 3 or 4 Quest bars at a time just because they're so freaking good. But I know that it's not optimal. I know there's a lot of preservatives. I know there's a lot of extra crap that probably isn't even on the label that they get away with because the FDA doesn't really regulate the supplementation industry as closely as we think. So that's why I'm always more of an advocate for whole foods. But again, here and there, if I'm on the run, if I am starving and I can't make it home to make a meal, then I'll try to be smart about it. And instead of grabbing fast food, I'll go with like a protein bar or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't like implement a lot of, I guess, bars because the bars seem like there's just loaded. There's like there might still be a lot of carbs from sugar, or they'll try to take it out, and they'll have a lot of artificial stuff in there. But what I use, and I agree with you 100% on using whole food. And I actually like with ectomorphs. Uh, I don't know about you, but I use a lot of kids cereal.
Yeah.
I use a lot of rice-based cereal and simpler stuff, especially around training, obviously.
Yeah.
It's not just to like get in the calories lower in fat so they can keep eating. But I will use like more of, if you haven't used any supplementation, is to try and get that hydrolyzed whey or something, because you can get now, I think, you can get stuff that is, doesn't have the artificial stuff in it. It's sweetened by stevia, or it's very low in the fillers and stuff like that, because it's a little more expensive, obviously. But if you can, but yeah, and I didn't know, because you can like compare the two things that I would compare to is like egg whites, or like protein powder, because they're kind of equivalent, like with the protein per serving stuff or whatever. But obviously, I'd go with the egg whites if you can. But for people on the go, would you say that what would be the best supplement if you were super busy like that, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So for today, I knew I was going to have a crazy morning and I wasn't sure when I was going to be able to eat. And I knew I was going to be hungry mid-morning, right? So I just put a scoop of like my ISO protein in a little Ziploc bag. I took it with me, and, an apple. And like for me, again, is the protein, like, powder, the best thing in the world? No. Like I would rather, have a chicken breast or, like a piece of steak or something, but it served its purpose, right? So I got my protein. My apple is a quick digesting carb. Like it's good, it's clean, there's no preservatives, there's no crap. So for me, like on the run, I think that's ideal. Scoop of protein powder and and some type of fruit, an orange, apple, banana, like whatever it is. Again, just keep it simple like that. You don't have to get too complex with it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you with that. It's to try and stay with the wholesome stuff. Obviously, you get a lot more micros and stuff, obviously. And just for like people listening, we're going through endos and ectos, and obviously there's still a meso in between. But the reason why we're kind of sticking to these two is because it's the end of the spectrum. Yeah. And with the mesos, it's like pretty much whatever way you want to go, and kind of more of like an in between. And so whatever we're saying, kind of like think about it in between is what I like to say. Because you guys will be able to get results a lot. Not saying you don't have to put in the hard work, but you'll be able to have the opportunity to gain the results with a little bit more leeway with your stuff. But just kind of going through a couple more things here. I know that I don't want to take up too much of your time, but training. So I like that you actually specialize your training stuff, volume or periodization or whatever you do around the body type as well. Kind of lead us through different types of blocks, or how you kind of structure an endomorph from an ectomorph.
Yeah. So again, with endomorphs, typically structuring the workouts in a way that you want to mobilize as much fat and oxidize as much fat as possible while building muscle, right? So, I don't really structure my training as far as for strength. I structure my training for more of like a metabolic resistance training, which means you're in the gym for, 30, 45 minutes tops, but you're constantly moving. So it's almost like a HIIT training workout with weights for 45 minutes. So a lot of supersetting, a lot of drop setting, minimal rest between exercises, minimal rest. Really the only rest you're getting should be from moving from one machine to the next, or one exercise to the next. So, oftentimes, I'm sure you see it every day, right? You go into the gym and, guys are just on their phone, they're, changing music, and little do they know they've spent, probably 80% of their workout just like on their phone, right? And very little time actually doing work. So my whole philosophy is, get in the gym, get the hell out, don't spend 2 hours at the gym, but make that short amount of time as intense and as efficient as possible. So training in that way, you're going to burn the most fat. Your heart rate's going to be extremely elevated. Your shirt should be absolutely soaked when you're done. You're going to have an awesome pump because, you've just broken down a ton of muscle in that short period of time, and you've accomplished the goal, so that's my philosophy. I've been training that way for years and years and years, and I've been able to build muscle, maintain muscle, and stay, very, very lean while doing it. So, but again, for ectomorphs, for example, if your goal is to get as big as possible and put on as much weight as possible, you can definitely utilize that same style of training. Or you can go more of like a training for strength type way, to where, you're taking more rest periods in between sets, which is going to allow you to push more weight each and every set.
Yeah.
So I think people just need to realize what exactly their goal is. You can get benefits from each style of training, but one is more effective for a specific body type than the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I agree with that. I like the different spectrum there for an endo versus an ecto. I think that not a lot of people think about that, obviously, and coaches don't even really think about that with, like you said earlier, the total volume, the types, the rest time, and maybe you're this is like more of like a muscle endurance rep range if you're talking about like, CSCS kind of whatever their guidelines, but more of like an upper rep range, I'm guessing, maybe 8 to 15 to whatever.
Yeah.
And that stuff for the drop set. I like to do giant sets. So yeah, totally like a circuit kind of deal.
Yeah.
I'm totally into that stuff. And then, depending on what your goals are though, right? Like that's a big thing. Obviously, if you're a strong man and you are a big husky guy, you don't really care about, the body fat. A lot of those strong guys have big guts. They're just like a freaking brick wall. And, they got like a certain weight class, but that's it.
Yeah. So what I always like try to talk to people about is like, well, I want to get stronger. I'm like, okay, well, if you could bench 500 pounds, but you look like crap, like then what does it matter? I mean, I've never gone to the beach before and had a girl come up to me and say, well, like you look like crap, but how much do you bench, right? Like people don't care how strong you are. And at the end of the day, like unless you're competing in powerlifting, or unless, like you're a UFC fighter, or unless it really serves a purpose, why do you need to squat 500 pounds anyway? I mean, you could build just as much muscle, squatting 200 pounds if you know how to do it. And like people look at me and I look a lot, like I'm a pretty muscular guy, but when I worked out, like I have 2 metal plates in my left arm from a wrestling accident in high school. So I physically can't lift that much weight. Like the most I'll ever bench is 185. The most I squat is typically, maybe 225 if I'm feeling strong because I have knee pain. So I've really had to, learn how to work around my injuries. But with that being said, I've still been able to build a lot of muscle and maintain a lot of muscle, without pushing these crazy amounts of weights, or, by doing these progressive overload style training methods that a lot of people out there are preaching. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. If you want to go bench press 400 pounds and that's your goal, then go for it. Mm-hmm. For me, and for your everyday person that just wants to get in shape and get a six pack and look good and, put some muscle on, you don't really have to train that way. So
yeah, no, I agree. And I actually stuck with an old mentor, my old coach and stuff like that, had the same philosophy really of that higher rep range and just creating as much like don't know if it's like hyperemia or like more blood in the muscles, just shoving it in there. And with your genetics and body type, like obviously the endomorph seems to be able to build muscle faster or like maintain on the way down. So structuring, like I said, again, like the training, not very many people think about that. They just are stuck to either the media or like the certifications out there saying, okay, you have strength or you have power, strength, hypertrophy, and muscle endurance. Yeah. But that's, like I said, about the body types with all the hormonal stuff we're talking about. It's the same thing with the training. It just depends, you know? So.
Yeah. And again, like you can mix it up too, you know, like I think people just like to put things in a box, you know, you're this, so you have to train this way. You're this, so you have to eat this way. I mean, you know, you could mix things up. I mix things up. I mean, I you know, utilize pretty much the same training principles and the same nutrition principles, but I still mix things up from time to time. You know, again, this is like a lifestyle. It's not something that we're just doing temporarily. You want to enjoy it. You don't want to just do mundane, boring workouts. So, you know, I'm a big advocate for changing it up every now and then. But again, you know, people need to realize what works best for them and what gets them results, and they need to, you know, double down on those things and just continue to do what works. You know, don't just do it because Joey from the gym said it worked for him. You know, experiment on your own body, experiment with yourself, and then continue down that path.
Yeah. Don't reinvent the wheel. I mean, there's
exactly
people done it in your same position of the same body type or, you know, same genetics. Figure that out. Follow it. Stay consistent with it, right?
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, man. Like I said, don't want to take up too much of your time. I really appreciate you, you know, being on the podcast today. I do want to give you an opportunity to kind of tell, you know, the viewers anything that you got going on coming up, or a little bit about your coaching program, how to contact you, all that kind of stuff.
Cool, man. Yeah. So if you guys want to find me on Instagram, it's Stephen Campolo, Stephen with a PH, STEPHEN CAMPOLO. And yeah, you can find me there. That's probably the best spot. Send me a DM if you have any questions. And yeah, man, over the next few months, I have a lot of traveling to do. So always looking to, you know, to hang out with my followers and, you know, fellow online coaches. So when I'm in Scottsdale, I'll be able to,
hell yeah,
yeah, man, I'll look you up and we'll go work out and hang out. But yeah, dude, it's been fun, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem, man. So what I'll do is also in the description, you know, I'll put all of his information, his website, Instagram, email, all that stuff. So if you have any questions for him, a little more down the specifics of maybe this body type stuff or how he can help you, definitely reach out to him. But anyways, you know, like I said, thank you so much for being on the podcast, man.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me, man. Take it easy, brother.
You too.
All right.